Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on Across the Fence. I'm Jolie Whitney. It's the fourth Wednesday of the month, which means it's time for everyone's favorite Bird Notes. Normally, this spot is reserved for Audubon, Vermont's Mark Labar, but Mark is on the wing, so to speak, so I'm joined by a special guest, Across the Fence's own Caleb May. Caleb has been working with Across the Fence for the past 2 years in various capacities, and it's always good to see you, Caleb. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And this is kind of set up like a job interview, which has been on your mind recently. You've graduated, and what's next?
Yeah, so I just received my diploma yesterday, actually.
Exciting.
With a Bachelor in Science in Wildlife Biology. And I'm currently working at Across the Fence for the next couple of months until May or June. And then, yeah, in the midst of trying to figure out what's next on the docket. So I've already applied to a job and got some feelers out in other places. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting few months, but I'm happy to be working at Across the Fence in the meantime.
Absolutely, definitely an interesting process, but we'll be sad to see you go.
I'll be sad to go.
All right, now let's talk birds.
Yes.
How did you get into bird watching?
So it was kind of on accident. It's not something a young person really normally gets into, but we had this guy in our town who would do woodworking workshops, and one day he did a bird feeder workshop, and we decided to sign up, and then kind of like, why not waste this perfectly good bird feeder that we just made? And so we filled it up with some seed, and it was on one of those times refilling it that I came face to face with a black-capped chickadee, and we kind of had a little stare down with each other, and it was kind of just in that moment I was like, this is the coolest thing ever, and I doubt I'll ever be able to forget this moment. And that was when I was 7, and now I'm 22, and the black-capped chickadee is still my favorite bird, and I still love to go birding. So
wow, so it sounds like birding found you more than the other way around.
Definitely. Completely on accident, and on my first bird walk afterwards, I was the youngest by a couple decades. So
great, and like you said, this is a bit of a community event as well, and you said that it's given you an opportunity to spend time with friends and your mom as well. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so my mom has been kind of my biggest supporter. After she found out that I was into birds, she set me up with a field guide and my first pair of binoculars, and she accompanied me on my first bird walk. And ever since, you see a picture here of us on the holiday bird
She's wearing
count.
the Christmas tree.
She's wearing the Christmas tree hat. Yes,
giving them somewhere to land.
And so many good memories with her. And whenever I say, "Hey, let's go out and do some bird watching," she's always down to go. And I've met some very good friends as well through bird watching. It's funny saying, "Oh, my birding buddy," and then it turns out to be a 65-year-old old man or something like that. But it's
I don't know if 65 is old.
No. Sorry to any watchers out there. But yeah, it's a great way to get involved with the community, and I've met some of like my closest friends, and really strengthened my relationship with my mom through it as well.
Absolutely, that's incredible. And it sounds like you started kind of as an amateur bird watcher, and now I think you're almost professional. But do you need some special equipment for it?
I would technically no. Birds are pretty vocal beings, especially in Vermont. You get the songbirds. That's what a lot of people go bird watching for. They're always singing. So if you happen to be able to identify them by sound, more power to you. It's perfectly okay to do that. But I would say, generally, you want to have a pair of binoculars, a camera if you have the money and you want to get into that. But a pair of binoculars is a good place to make an investment, and it will really help you in your birding journey. So the answer is technically no. If you're a gifted ear, go ahead and do it. But I had a binocular as soon as I started, and have progressively, made my investments with those.
Great. So are you as good at identifying the calls as you are with the sight?
A lot of my early days of birding was spent with the bird guide, looking at the pictures and being like, that's out there somewhere. And then I finally saw them in person, and then ever since it's been trying to catch up on my knowledge of songs.
Absolutely. And speaking of one of your birding experiences, a couple of months ago, you and another birding friend that you've made saw 40 bald eagles in one place. Where was that?
Yes, that was in Dover, New York.
Wow.
And we were going for golden eagles at this hunting reserve where they have tons of ringneck pheasants. And we did a little trespassing. There's an admission of guilt there.
On TV.
And we were looking over this mountainside, and there was like 40 bald eagles. You kept on scanning, and there were more and more white heads showing up. And yeah, we counted about 35 to 40 of them.
Wow, that's incredible.
It was amazing. And some of my birding buddies didn't believe me, but I swear, I saw them.
It's like the same as fishing. There's maybe a little lie.
Yeah, no, maybe a little embellishment.
And last month on Bird Notes, Mark Labar told us that birds fly, which was news to us, of course. And likewise, they literally fly in and out of a birder's life. So why don't we talk about some migrants? What's the first picture we have here?
So migration is what makes birding so special to me. It helped me fall back in love with New England with the different turnover. And migration is this really interesting thing to me because this is an eastern phoebe you see now. I see hundreds of them over the course of the year, but it's always the first one in late March, early April. It's like the coolest thing in the world to me. So migration keeps things fresh and exciting. And the eastern phoebe is like something I'll maybe grow tired of towards, August, but right at the beginning, it's like, where have you been? Like, welcome back.
A great sign of spring.
Yes, it's a early sign of spring for me.
How about this next one, the cerulean warbler?
Yes, the cerulean warbler, another example of how migration can be so exciting for me. This, you don't really get them up in Vermont, maybe a couple times, but they're an extremely local breeder, loyal breeder, and you won't find them in a lot of places. So their range might be, I'm from Connecticut, might be all of Connecticut, but they're only found in very specific places. So it's a beautiful warbler. I saw it the day after my freshman year ended, and it was like one of the best birding experience of my life.
That's sweet welcome home for you.
Yes, exactly.
And along with migrants, there are also vagrants.
Yes.
And this isn't a mean word in birding. Why don't you tell me what vagrants are and some examples?
Vagrants are super exciting in the birding community. It's when a bird kind of ends up outside of its normal range. So migration is within its normal range. Vagrancy is when a storm or a magnetic interference or some other reason causes a bird to end up outside of its regular range. So on screen you see a yellow-throated warbler. Those are normally the northmost part of their range is New Jersey, and this was actually seen by my friend Connor Moses, fellow wildlife biology major and a great bird photographer, and he saw it in Vermont, which was
great,
really exceptional.
Kind of a happy accident for birders.
Yes, definitely, and it causes quite the stir in the birding community. There's the northern lapwing, which is normally found in Europe, but it is found pretty regularly, maybe every year or every other year on the coast of the Atlantic coast. So Rhode Island, Massachusetts is a great place to see them.
A long way from home.
Yeah, it's pretty special. You'll see the bird alert come up for those, and you'll be like, well, that's going to draw a crowd. And then, and all these were spotted by Connor Moses. He's quite the dedicated vagrant chaser.
Wow, and beautiful photographs as well.
Yes, beautiful photographs. This is a scissortail flycatcher. They're normally a Great Plains bird, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. And that's just during the breeding season. This was found in late November in Massachusetts, so way, way outside of its zone, outside of its normal range, which was super cool.
And then our next one we have, is this the tropical kingbird?
Tropical kingbird. On the way over here, I did a little research, and it turns out this was a suspected hybrid between a Couch's kingbird, a tropical kingbird, and a scissortail flycatcher. But the tropical kingbird's normal range is the very southern tip of Texas and Arizona, and this again was seen in, I think, the colder months in New Hampshire. So
sure.
Way, way outside of its range, and a lot of people were kind of going after that. You may have heard of the Steller sea eagle. This one is normally on the east coast of Eurasia. So Russia, Japan, places like those.
I'd hate to get on the bad side of one of those.
Yeah, no, they're mean-looking birds. And that one actually traveled across the country, starting from Alaska all the way over, and settled quite nicely in Maine, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island, I think on 2 separate years, 2021 and 2023 maybe, and stayed there for quite a while. As far as we know, it was perfectly happy there, and so were the birders who got to see it.
Oh, I'm sure.
And then this great black hawk is the next one you see, and this was a very interesting story. These are Central and South American birds, never before seen in the United States until 2019, until one showed up in Texas. And then it didn't stop there. It went all the way up to Portland, Maine, and it stayed there until its untimely death in December of 2019. But just amazing that it was 2,000, 3,000 miles outside of where it normally would be. So vagrants are like the most exciting part about birding, and sadly I don't have a car, otherwise I'd go after them a lot more.
I'm sure, and you can tell even how you're talking about it or when Mark comes in, there's a lot of respect for the birds you're looking at, and there's also a lot of respect for other birders. So kind of how do you show that when you're out in the field?
Yeah, so specifically with these vagrants, they don't pay attention to property lines or other stuff like that, or where they land. So if you're going to be in a piece of woodlands or a state park or a national forest, national park, wherever you might be respectful of the rules. These birds can gather quite a crowd, so you obviously don't want to cause harm to the ecosystem or to the bird itself. And then sometimes they'll be on private property, and in that case you have to respect the homeowner's wishes, and just be respectful of what they want and be respectful of the bird. And if you see a rare bird, don't send it to every birder you know. Maybe you can keep it to yourself or send it to people. The website eBird, which can be used to track birds with sensitive birds like vagrants or rare birds, will sometimes hide the exact location, so they do a great job of taking care of that. But just be respectful when going out birding, no matter if it's a vagrant or for a chickadee. There's some etiquette, and you're in nature, so
great. Keep all that in mind, and then also just have some fun.
Yes,
some birds.
exactly.
All right. Caleb, thank you so much for joining us today. If you have a bird-related question, I'm sure Caleb would be happy to answer, but you can also email Mark Labar, who will be back next month. Mark's email is mlabar@audubon.org, and as you've heard Mark say, and I'm sure Caleb agrees, pics are welcome and encouraged. And that takes care of bird notes for this month. But before we fly, my thanks to the hardest working crew behind the scenes here at WCAX. I'm Jolie Whitney. This is Across the Fence. Have a good one.